Welcome to the One Berry Lane podcast, where we delve into stories that make our high school community so special. This is episode 14, and I'm your host, Matt Jones, principal of Logansport High School, proud principal of Logansport High School. Today we have two very special guests in the principal's office, but I'm sure it's probably the only time they were sent to the principal's office, and it's today, right?
That would be correct.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. At least at this school, yes.
Well, we as we bid farewell to two beloved figures who have dedicated their lives to our choral program and music program at Logansport. Joining me today in the office today, we have Susan and Tim Cahalan. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
This dynamic husband and wife team. Dynamic duo. They've been teaching choral music in Logansport Community School Corporation for 40. Is this the 44th year?
42 at Logansport.
42 at Logan.
43 and a half for him.
I taught a year and a half at a little burg called Union City over by Richmond.
Union City, way down near Richmond, Ohio,
Right.
near the Ohio border.
Strange place. They would ask you what time. If you say concert at 7 p.m., they'd say fast time or slow time. And I went, what? It was because people lived on the state line, and they would choose whether it was, at that time, we were Central Time in the summer, remember?
Right.
So it was weird. I'm like, it's 7 o'clock. Don't ask me.
Well, we're happy you're with you. Ended up back in Logansport, in both proud graduates of Logansport High School. Right. It's an honor to have you both here today. There's just so much I want to talk about. So welcome, Susan and Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's kind of start with retracing our steps here and what year your high school. Let's talk a little bit about your high school experiences. Logansport, what you were involved in. If you want to say what year you graduated, that's fine too. So either one, start, and we'll just start chatting about that.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I graduated in 1982. There's several alumni of 1982 that still teach here at the high school. Right. We've got Beth Myers and Laura Carnefel. And
you have Chris Hess across town, right?
Hess across town. Yeah. Kelly Bullard was the class of 82. So I was involved in band and jazz band, choir, swing choir. I played the piano for the freshman choir. And then they decided I would be better used for singing rather than playing. So, and so I did that, and I was involved in all of the winter fantasies. We had a senior class musical back then, so we did I did the senior class musical. I played in the pit bands. Played the piano for West Side Story when they did that one,
which, by the way, is no small feat.
I remember, growing up in Logansport. I was going to all the plays at that time, and I was good friends with Jason Seifert. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time spending the night at Pat's house, and just West Side Story, and going to that. Yeah. My sister was in Brigadoon. Mm-hmm. That was her senior class.
Senior year, she's
right?
A year
she's class of 83, right?
And also, I was on the speech team. I wasn't very good at it, but I was on the speech team. I did radio. Yeah. I did radio because I didn't like to get up in front of people. And so radio was something where you were, radio was something you could prepare for a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You sat in a booth by yourself. So, I enjoyed.
So obviously music heavy. Not surprised.
Very music heavy here at the high school.
She always tells a story. She was in third grade when the high school choir came around to Columbia Elementary, and she was so taken by it. She's remembered ever since. Yeah, that was her motivation to look forward to being in music.
High school choir and the swing choir came to the schools, and I was in Columbia Elementary and the gym that's now torn down. Right. And and I can remember what they sang, what they wore. So I thought I want to do that.
Hence why we still do that.
That's right.
Because that's a huge, changed your life. You saw that and it made a difference.
And it's neat to think that there might be kids out there today when they see the swing choir come around to say,
I'm sure it does.
So,
yeah. Well, Mr. C, I know you're the fifth person to sign. I think it's the fifth person to sign the Distinguished Scholars book.
Oh, that's funny.
I always share that. I always share that with the
alphabetical. By
I always share that with the kids before we go on stage for Distinguished Scholars.
Yeah, we've been joking about now that I'm going to retire. I think it might be the last thing that's original to this building. The last person or piece of furniture or anything else, because I came here in my junior year. So back then I was at Columbia for 9th grade. I was junior high. And then 1 year at the old high school down there.
So you got a little bit of everything there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have seen the old high school and the old Berry Bowl. I mean, I just never got to see it.
I remember the old Berry Bowl.
Yeah. I remember that very well.
I was about 1 or 2 when they tore it down.
Little kid, we played we had summer basketball camps and stuff in there and all that. So that was...
Well, plus they had, I remember my brother's senior class play was George M. About George M. Cohen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the old auditorium.
Right.
I think it was condemned
I've just seen
at the
pictures
time.
of it.
It was in bad shape.
It was in bad shape. But
this building, though, because that was built in 1912.
Right.
So it was only there 60 years,
Yeah.
and we're already past 50 here. And we're
this building
holding
looks
up
great.
pretty well.
Yeah, it really does.
But my background was we had a very musical family. We would sing and play, and there was music in the house all the time. Sometimes we'd reluctantly, sing for somebody when Dad would say, "Okay, we got a gathering here, time to sing." It was sort of like the Trapp family. I was not the most talented one in the room by any means. But I got very much into trumpet playing, and then I didn't even do choir until my junior year in high school. But when I went to IU, it was recommended that a person should do what they called an area major at that time, which was choir and band, so you're qualified for either one when you come out to have a job. So as I said, I had that first job. I was the one-man music department with choir and band. Much as I've grown up with band, I liked choir pretty much right away. It's easier to get to the music. You don't have to fight with a broken spring or a drum head that's broken or whatever. And so that became, my first love along the way. Then I did high school band and choir assistants and different things here for a few years, and was asked to go to elementary. And so I was at elementary at Landis later, Daniel Webster first. Mm-hmm. We've also closed every building.
Wow.
Yeah, we pretty much have closed every building in
Daniel
town.
And I have great memories. I was a Warrior, so I have great memories of Daniel Webster.
I was at Tipton the last year.
I love that old building.
So I was at Daniel Webster in Columbia Elementary for 19 years. And, then they opened Landis. I was there the first 17 years of that. Loved it. Enjoyed teaching little kids music. Was determined by Dr. Sargent, Dr. Thacker, principal and superintendent at the time, 2004, that they needed to make a change up here at the high school, and asked if I'd like to come back and do that. And first I said no. Then I said maybe, and eventually did it because I was enjoying what I was doing. Along the way there at the elementary, I discovered I had a knack for teaching little kids to sing, and so we started the children's choir, and it grew and grew and grew and became a really big deal. And so when they asked me to come to high school, I said, as long as I can still do that.
Right.
And that's been wonderful feeder system and a great combination, plus kind of, overwhelming on a personal level for all those years.
Sure.
And so it's a lot. Could have been four-time people, but it's been a real blessing, and each fed each other. And so. What about,
at IU, you were in the marching.
Yeah, I was in the marching 100 at
100,
IU.
Yeah.
I was first chair trumpet myself.
Yeah, very impressive. Excellent trumpet player.
I played a bit back then. Now I do weddings and occasional Easters, and have to get these, what they call chops, all ironed out again before I play. It's
Plus,
not very
you were
often.
in a rock band in high school.
Actually, that's a good point.
You were in a rock band?
There was
that's what everybody
in the
says.
70s?
There was a big-time rock band
in the
mid-70s. It had a funny name, Cam Brass Jam, because the lead singer was a guy named Kevin Camping, and they tried to get everybody's initials, their names into the name. Mike Thomas, who has a display out here, was a guitar player.
Oh, yes.
And first rate, ended up playing professionally. And sadly, as a lot of people know, he went down in a plane crash with Reba McEntire's band.
Right.
Matt Muehlhausen's another talented person that was in that group, and Ed Wilkinson, who's a fine player, but does it amateur in the sense a lover of, not in terms of quality. We didn't know we had, but it was remarkable. Look back on, there's some old scratchy recordings. I'm like, wow, high school kids could
So what did you guys play? Just like cover tunes? The modern rock and roll music?
Because we had the brass in there, we did pieces by Chicago.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah.
And at that time, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Any of the ones that were having brass sections added in.
Sure.
And we had crazy stuff. They had a dance one time in the ballroom of the Elks up on the top floor. We had like 600 kids come to that. They were using it for a fundraiser for a Lions Club. They used to have a kids part of that called the Leo Club, and they charged a few bucks to get in. They must have made a fortune because it was
wow.
That's kind of cool. And I was just a small cog in that because Matt Muehlhausen was this musical genius who would just listen to a recording and then write the brass parts down. He never bought any music.
It amazes some people just have that talent.
I learned how to do that in college.
I mean, how many musicians, guitar player, they don't read music at all. They just play by ear.
It was all by ear.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's always fascinates me. I'm so envious of musicians. I just, I have very little talent, but I just appreciate it more than anything. So, Margie, when you went to Daniel Webster, did you replace Mrs. Potter? That'd be right?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably. See, when I had her, we always used to do the Daniel Webster rhythms.
Columbia rhythms.
Oh, what? I thought that was only a Daniel Webster.
Sorry.
What?
Burst your bubble. Yeah, Columbia rhythms with Mrs. Potter. Sorry.
I thought that was special to 24th and Market.
We've had a lot of fun these last few weeks with all the different people doing things kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the one that they put together for the very broadcast, but Mr. Packard found what on earth? His mom apparently had videotaped the Daniel Webster 4th and 5th grade choir, and
I'm not surprised.
He posted that the other day. Yeah. It was me, a lot more hair, a lot less weight, and with the elementary choir. They sounded pretty good, by the way.
And you were playing the piano.
I was playing the piano.
And nowadays, everything's recorded. I barely have any videos of like playing sports growing up just because we didn't have a recorder, a VHS. And they were expensive. I mean, my gosh, they were $4,000 or $5,000 bucks.
He had a whole thing on the championship.
Right. I remember when they closed the gym or something maybe he played in the last game, that group with Bo Wicker and in that class, they would close the old gymnasium cafeteria there at those tiles would break all the time. Rick Scott would have to replace the tiles in the gym.
Down there too.
Let's talk, about Logansport a little bit in choir. It's hard not to talk a little bit about Mr. Joe Huffman. And legendary, longtime band and choir, came here in about 46-ish. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about his influence.
It's kind of funny that today Bob Shovelin was subbing for the band folks while they were going around trying people out on instruments. And we always joked about when we tried to figure out what to do as teachers, we had the initials WWJD, which is supposed to be what would Jesus do. In our case, what would Joe do?
Right, yeah.
And to this day, Susan kind of teases me about it because I feel like I'm still trying to see if I measure up. And I think that's probably true that I did.
Well, I think Joe,
taught 7 years long.
I believe Joe would be very proud of what you've done with the program.
He was a remarkable talent and a charismatic guy. Just before him, there was a fine band director here named Bill Morocco. And I was just thinking about those guys back then were sort of like the Music Man. Mm-hmm. They didn't worry about conflict of interest because the same guy would run the music store and sell the instruments and then teach it at the school, which they wouldn't do now. But Mr. Huffman was a great musician, glorious singer. He's understanding his major instrument at college was cello, which I never heard him play.
Right.
He played bass. He played trumpet better than just about anybody. It was amazing, all the different things he could do, and had a great personality. When we were kids, we grew up in giant choirs and bands, and part of that was because scheduling was easier. We had 32 credits to graduate. That's 4 periods for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you had a 6-period day. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
Well, back then they had home ec, shop,
a very
music.
narrow elective list.
But he was also great in motivator stuff. He tells the story, though. He didn't always have these giant numbers of men he had later. One time the football team got in trouble. They used to practice the last period of the day or whatever. And athletic practice time they used to have.
Like an athletic study hall.
What happened? Some of them got in trouble, and they what was the story? Something about one of the kids said, "I'm thinking about joining a choir." And Joe said, "You can do it if you bring the whole darn team," which they did.
They did.
And once they got there, they enjoyed it.
I'm
and
sure.
From then on, they had this great big, wonderful program. So, yeah, and it was, you know, I'm more than willing to say this now, was challenging when I came in there. I was in 1 year as an assistant to Joe, along with Bob Shovel and Annie Horning, some others that were there. And then he retired. And then, voila, Tim Cahalan is the head of the department and is band director and choir director. I'm 24 years old or whatever it was.
That's a lot of pressure, replacing that legend.
It was successful musically. It was less successful in, you know, perception of that among some of the public. But the funny thing is, life takes its turns, and it's a blessing. Because when I was asked to do elementary, an opening came up, and we had just gotten married. I didn't think I would do it, or I didn't think I would do it long term. Loved it. Started this children's choir thing, and we were going all over the world, you know, before we came back to the high school. And none of that would have happened if I would have stayed at the high school, you know. So you never know.
So that's
one thing I want to tell young people is I see people have setbacks and disappointments, and sometimes young people don't realize that we've all had them. Sooner or later, somebody has something that's very
those
disappointing.
are life lessons.
Things goes off track, and you pick at the pieces and go on from there.
You're not going to win every time, right? They're going to have some bumps in the road. That's
a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, and I took voice lessons from Mr. Huffman. You took
trumpet lessons from me.
Well, then that's something like high school or band teachers or choral teachers. They do a lot of private lessons.
Yes,
it's a part of the gig, right?
At least, certainly, it's been a tradition here. I have like 15, 16 private lessons. I don't like to let much moss grow under my feet, as they say. So 3 nights a week when I'm not doing children's choir for the other 2, I fill it to supper time with lessons. But that's part of the fun, and then the kids can sing at a high level, and all the all-state stuff and all the rest of it sort of comes from that. And the same can be true on the instrumental side. These people I named that are around town still, all of them took lessons from Joe. I mean, Ed Wilkinson, that has a heating company, plays great. Dave Kitchell took clarinet lessons from him, former mayor.
Well, we were so glad to get him into the Hall of Distinction. He spoke at graduate. You guys were there. Right. Yeah. I mean, then he passed that later that year. That was what an amazing career. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about children's choir. So you start. Was your concept to start a feeder program or a local?
Well, the thing was, I had been asked to do elementary school, and I found pretty quickly these kids can sing pretty well. I seemed to be able to help them find their voices. We'd do the little things in first grade. I'd sing, "Hello, Johnny," "Hello," and falsetto, and they'd sing it back. And I laughed because for years, and I'll be walking through Martin's or somewhere, and I'll hear some adult go, "Hello, Mr. Z." It's the same thing. They remember doing that. And I was working on my master's in summer times and stuff down at Butler. And I had a workshop with Henry Leck, who ended up being world famous conductor of the Indianapolis Children's Choir, and big deal in this field. And it was about children's choirs, and I thought, well, we can do that. It's kind of ambitious to prove that what I could do after having a little bit of a setback in career. That was part of it. And so we'd start off with 40, what did you say? 45 third, fourth, and fifth graders. And just got started, and they started to sing beautifully, so we would apply to sing at state music teachers conventions and been accepted to do that, and sometimes regional stuff like that, and fun stuff. While we've been preparing for the last go-round of that, which is also upon us here, found some old fun stuff. One of the things we got to do was there was a sports reporter out of Indianapolis on Channel 6 named Ed Sorensen.
Sure.
Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
WRTV made a holiday video that they showed on TV, and also an audio recording of it, of different amateur groups around the state. And we did a thing. We applied to do it, and it was about the third year of the children's choir in 1992 or something. It was all I want for Christmas was my 2 front teeth done in a rap style. And this Ed Sorensen did all the rapping, and we were singing with it, and the camera angles would show the kids singing, and then they'd show hockey players. He's a sports reporter with no teeth and all this stuff. And the local kid, Craig Shanto, the doctor down there, was along with it. Sure. They showed some kid looking terrified, waiting in the dentist's office and all this.
So is there a video of this out there? I'm about to find it. Ed Sorensen's a big guy, too. I remember he's a kind of...
Susan just found it.
You can find anything
Oh, I know.
YouTube.
It's all archived.
I found it.
I need to find it. So Craig Shanto's in this. Doc Shanto. I know. I played a lot of golf with Dr. Shanto. He was in my dad's football crew for a long time.
He ran track when I was in high school.
Yeah.
For a while. Then, 1997, the year before that, we had been invited to sing at the American Choral Directors Central Division Convention in Cincinnati. It was our first big out-of-town thing. And as a result of that, we were getting invitations to do touring things, festival and stuff, which was very common now, less common then. And I sort of joked with Susan, hey, we ought to go to this thing in England, Canterbury and London. And she's like, no, sure, you got to be crazy. And I don't know how in the heck I got you talked into it.
I don't either.
But eventually we
decided. That was the beginning of your being a travel agent, right?
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And well, I mean, you work with a travel company, but she learned very quickly that year that you got to fix everything they goof up.
Yeah.
So she became very good at it. But we raised a tremendous amount of money and made a trip to England and sang at Canterbury Cathedral.
And singing in these beautiful cathedrals and the sound, not quite the entryway of the high school, but we tried to replicate it here at Logansport High School.
Once we had done that in 1997, good Lord, that's 26 years ago or whatever it is now. We kind of got hooked on it. We decided we'd try to tour every 2 years as long as we had kids willing and stuff. So we went to Toronto in 99, and then 2001 we went back to Europe and had a very ambitious tour. We went to Italy, Austria, and Germany. We sang in the Duomo in Florence. And
what a great opportunities for the kids in that program.
In front of St. Peter's.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
St. Peter's Square and all that. And so it just gradually, I could go through all that, but that's too much. But we did a lot of that sort of thing. We went in... We performed twice down in New Orleans at a children's choir festival down there. We've been to...
In the St. Louis Cathedral down there.
We've been to Canada. We sang in this beautiful place in Montreal. One of the best things we remember was we sang in the oldest church in North America, a little tiny thing down Quebec City has the part up on the hill where you see pictures of that famous hotel, but then down, looks like a chateau. Down below is this little tiny church in a square, and we had a concert, and we were singing, and it was summertime, and the doors were open, and people were in the square, and we started with about 40 or 50 people in the room, and by the end, it was standing ovation. It was standing only. People just were coming in off the street.
Wow.
That was a really cool experience. And it goes on and on what we were able to do. We went in 2009 was our last big Europe trip, because the next big after that, we went to Hawaii, which was neat. And then it's got a little tougher on the finances. We've had great domestic tours, but we haven't been able to do a Europe thing. But it hasn't.
We did New York. We sang in St. Patrick's Cathedral and
Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall.
There was Carnegie Hall too. Carnegie Hall. It's no big deal.
And,
wow.
St. Patrick's Cathedral, and we sang Notre Dame in Paris. And we were sad when they had the fire. We were all watching that because we'd been there.
It's crushing.
We're getting it fixed up though, and so. Yeah, and the one in 2009 was the biggest one we ever put together. We went to Switzerland and Austria and Liechtenstein.
Czech Republic.
Wow.
Prague.
You guys, a lot of frequent flyer miles there.
And so, as when they said, would you like to come back to high school, a lot of those kids were raring to go. And they joined the high school choir. And
that machine, that well-oiled machine, quickly. Just kept going and going.
And it's we have a couple of young teachers coming in here. I think are just going to do great. I'm by no means trying to brag things up too much, but it was neat how it fed itself, and those kids are still that way. We have 2 high school students in the choir, the children's choir, who come every Wednesday and sing this really high-powered music with that, and they come back into the school choir and you do anything,
Right.
we also, of course, so that's a big part of what's been our life and the life of a lot of these kids. But we wanted to make sure that wasn't the tail that wags the dog here at the high school. And so one of the things we've been able to do with a lot of those good singers with the lessons and that choir is place the real emphasis on high school all-state choir.
We've had so many.
We've really
hit that distinction, haven't we?
We just think it's a really neat opportunity for kids. And so we've made it a high priority. Part of our legacy from Joe Huffman was excellence, but not competition cycles, not multiple marching band or show choir contests. All the respect in the world for the people that do that and do it well. But we don't like to do that. In Logansport, kids are all involved in everything. Not all the people in the area, we've been the coordinators of the All-State for the area. We aren't the judges. We don't get to pick the kids. And they do it by numbers. They don't know who goes to what school and all that. But our area has a quota based on complicated formula of how many kids try out in a given area of the state. It's kind of complicated, but they'll say you have 18 in your area, or whatever. And a lot of times out of those 18, we'll have 12 or 13 of them that are ours, partially because I think we do well, but also because not as many schools participate as they should, really. So.
And we make sure they're prepared.
We really
make sure
well,
it's
you
it's just
guys,
something we really like and believe in.
And the kids seem to enjoy it. The kids enjoy the all-state experience.
I got up there one time. And I one time I was going to go, and they got iced out, or it was ice, and I couldn't make it. But I didn't make it the one year, and that was so neat.
The one year you made it, they did some of the weirdest music.
I remember you saying of all the years you picked,
because a lot of choir directors do very contemporary music, which is like contemporary art. You look at it and say, "What is that painting?" Sometimes you listen to that kind of music and you say,
"Well, I was impressed, regardless." It was a good night.
But and then the other thing we've done here was, if you don't do a contest, if you don't say who can rank you number 1 or 2 or 3 out of whatever, if kids do really well, they ought to have a chance to show that. Or conversely, they ought to be motivated to do well by something. And we've chosen to do the Disney World thing for that, which we started that in 2008 with the swing choir. And we've done that every 2 years. The idea is to get anybody who's in there for a couple of years to have the opportunity to do that. And
that's worked out really well.
We've taken that very seriously, too. It's not too big a secret that most groups that want to go there can go. You apply, but they're wanting some butts in the seat, as they say. But they've always been impressed with our kids, and we just treat it very seriously. And a lot of times they'll say, well, for one thing, they'll say, okay, there's a few microphones across the front of the outdoor stage, but we think you should sweeten this by recording it at home, and we'll play it over the system, and you can sing along with your own recording. And I was like, nope, we can do it. Our kids can sing. And then almost always afterwards, they'll say, you're right, we didn't need that. We
always impress them, don't we?
And they often say that. Let's face it, it's their job to say so.
Yeah.
But I think it's also true. And one of the things, the memories, kids, we ask them to share some memories when they graduate. One of them, I think it was Maggie Halterman this year, said something about what she liked when they sang at Disney World was there would be, 50 or 60 people in this waterside stage at the downtown Disney when we start. And then by the end of the program, there'd be the whole place would be full because people are a very busy area walking by. They stop and listen. Again, they could stop, listen, and then go on, but they stopped and stayed.
I think that tells a lot about the quality, how outstanding they are.
And then we also have done a thing with that the last few times, the worry, and we survived it, was there's not a good backup plan if it rains. You put all that time, effort, money, everything into that. And if it rains, what happens? So we wanted to make sure we had something else. And so we've participated in a Broadway workshop thing that they have where you learn a scene from one of the Disney things like Beauty and the Beast, or we've done Tangled or whatever ones, Mary Poppins, and you learn, everybody learns all the parts. Everybody learns the music. Everybody studies the script, but they cast it and then prepare it and present it to the parents all in about a 3-hour period. They have really high-powered pros. They're the real deal that have done it on Broadway and stuff that help the kids do it.
Sure.
And So that's been a really neat thing. But the last time, just last 2022, what was it we did for that one?
Frozen.
Oh, the Frozen thing. Yeah. And the guy said, I never heard anybody sing like that. You know, and let's be fair to that one too. Some of the ones that come into the Broadway thing are not primarily choirs. They're theater people, or they're even sometimes dance troupes that accidentally back into that.
Well,
but the guy did say it. I never heard a group sing like that.
Well, and we've had so many talented singers, and with your guys', the training and the private lessons and the working with them in children's choir and here at Logansport High School. But you have two outstanding ones that were your own. And we can't, have the talk about, we've got to talk a little bit about Sarah and Laura Cahalan. Just two, not only just really smart young ladies, but obviously beautiful singers and were greatly involved. How was it like working with, teaching your children?
Well, mostly it was wonderful and easy. I mean, some of the standard things you might expect happened a little bit. Like a coach, if your kid happens to be the best basketball player, there's always going to be somebody say he only got to do that because he's the coach's kid. Yeah. And I remember, who was it? It was the basketball coach a few years ago, that Casey Victor.
Sure.
The son, Casey was the kid's name, right?
Right, Casey. Yeah, Mark was the
coach.
guy.
Mark was the coach. You'd hear things like, and that kid could jump out of the gym. It's like, oh. It has nothing to do with the fact that, he's a great basketball player.
Well, you prove it on the you show it.
So there was a little bit of that,
but
not too much. Mostly it was great, and they got to do all this stuff together as a family. And it was a lot of fun. They both got some nice opportunities in lots of All-State, and you could probably tell a little bit more about that.
I don't think they ever went to their locker for the 4 years they were here. Right. They always left everything in the choir office, so that was an advantage for them.
And they both made All-State choir multiple years, and, some national choirs we used to do also. And Laura came along with good timing. She was a very nice, clear, beautiful soprano voice. And, her class was not as loaded with talent as some. So between her skills and, a smaller group, she got to do a lot of neat things. They did Oliver, and she played Oliver, because that's usually done by a little girl at a high school. She was also a lead part in Oklahoma, and in the summertime, Music Man. So she was pretty lucky. Sarah was in Cinderella. She played the fairy godmother in Cinderella.
Seussical.
Seussical.
Right.
She was She was the sour kangaroo,
which Laura seems to fit for
Laura.
Sarah.
Was the little kangaroo.
Well, they've gone on, and Notre Dame, IU, right, and successful, and just doing amazing things.
So Sarah is remarkably sharp. I mean,
she was on Jeopardy.
She had a lot of, we've had fun with that Jeopardy thing. I can't believe
not many people get the chance to even go on Jeopardy. I'm sure you're extremely proud.
Scores and stuff.
Off
the charts.
Yeah,
kids will come up and talk about what they did in the SAT, and I'm like, I don't want to tell you what Sarah did on that.
Right.
And Laura did great too.
Yeah.
And they both they're doing very good things, and proud of them, of course. Sarah
they got a lot of
has
that,
worked for the New York Times, and she's got 1/50th of a Pulitzer Prize or something for the coverage of the COVID thing. She was part of a team that won a Pulitzer Prize for that.
What are some of the most memorable moments or accomplishments that might stand out during your tenure?
It'd be difficult because there's two things. Number one, we always sprint right off to the next thing without having a lot of time to reflect. And number two, there'd been so many. Sometimes they're the things that surprise you. I mean, we were at Walt Disney World a few years ago, and it poured rain, and everybody ran into the nearest shop, and our kids ran into one of the little shops that sell souvenirs and just started singing something. Whatever it was very good, and it was very cool to just have that happen.
A little impromptu.
Children's choir sang This Little Light of Mine in a 4-part harmony in Mammoth Cave, which is,
I bet that was great,
what else?
It's so hard to pinpoint just one
Over
thing,
40
you
years.
know.
I mean, that probably, there's quite a few
All the
moments.
All the musicals. I mean, we haven't
Yeah.
talked about that. We
Right.
have directors of the musicals. Although I did one my first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to talk about that?
Little did I know.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes.
I don't think
the
you want to
kids
talk
all know
about
our
that.
story. That she was a student of mine for 1 year, and we became a couple later on. I hasten to add, it was later on. But little did I know when I cast Hello, Dolly that Chris S. was the one that got the lead part.
Oh.
And I did not.
I didn't realize I was going to get, Chris was fine, but didn't realize I was going to get a lot of guff about that for decades to come.
Yeah.
Never ends, huh?
Should have.
So we've had a lot of fun joking about that stuff.
Podcast with Mr. Kinney and the cast and crew of Mamma Mia, and there was so much just giving you guys kudos for the success, and Mr. Kinney, and he was saying that's the reason why our musical theater's been so outstanding, because of all your guys' work with the singers.
Well, the funny thing is they aren't the big ones. The things that I'm going to remember are, when the swing choir is singing the bell will ring, and if they're really into it, they just either they keep singing until the song is finished, or they'll just get up. I'll keep playing. They'll walk out the door. They're out in the hall.
Right.
They're still singing.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if there's a day that goes by that somebody's not wearing a children's choir shirt from something they picked up as a souvenir, a Disney shirt, something. Just all the places we've taken them, and you see, the souvenir shirts that they pick up someplace and all of that. It's those kinds of things that stay with me even more than just the big moments.
We were in Canada clear back in 1999 with the children's choir in Toronto, and we'd made arrangements to sing in this church. So we go in there for our rehearsal. Well, you can't come in yet. There's another group rehearsing. It was Canadian brass.
Oh, my.
And they're world famous. And we got to hear them play. And then they said, sit down, we're just going to play for you. So we had a concert. We didn't even know they were there. That's kind of stuff. We'll sing in a restaurant. We're traveling somewhere, and we'll just pull out a pitch pipe and sing. And it's kind of fun because the kids will be scattered. Sometimes these Italian, where you do it family style,
right?
Buca di Beppo or whatever,
We're all different.
Kids are scattered all over the place, and then they just start to singing, and everybody thinks that's neat normally. I suppose there's somebody trying to talk to their best friend.
Oh, wow.
Ruining, but most of the people seem to enjoy those.
Well,
like we like to just get up in this entryway.
Oh,
here.
yeah. I always try to come out when because you're right, it does.
Oh, it sounds great.
The main lobby of the high school does have a beautiful sound. The acoustics, that high ceiling, and it's just perfect. The angles, and so great. Was there anything I didn't ask you want me to ask you? Did I miss something? Or something you want to say?
Well, I mean, for me, it's the same thing I always say. How fortunate we've all been to have Susan and her many skills.
Oh my God, her piano, and I mean, very fine. Listening to you play, and you were doing some Beethoven recently. I mean, just hitting the keys hard, and oh my gosh.
But Susan is a very, very fine piano player and a better accompanist. There are people that can just technically play fantastic, but they don't know what it's like to accompany a choir and give them a little help. If there's a soprano, there's a piano part, it's there. But half the time she'll jump over and play the part of, whoever needs it without me saying anything about it.
I don't even know how she turns the book at the same time and plays.
See, now
she figured a secret out to that one.
Well, yeah, you bend the corner of the pages up.
Because at times you've had a student, maybe Laura, maybe one time, or somebody would help you there. But somehow you just do it now by yourself.
You will appreciate this. Now you can have a Bluetooth page turner.
Oh,
so you have most people now. I'm of the old school where I like the paper music. Most everybody has it on an iPad, and so you can either just do the touch it and it'll go, which is easy, or you can get a Bluetooth pedal
and it flips it for you.
And all you have to do is with your right foot is doing the pedaling for the piano, but your left foot does the page turning.
I don't know how you can. My brain does not work like that.
I would goof that up in a hurry.
My future son-in-law was saying, I could get you one. I'm like, I think I'm too old to learn this.
I'm good.
I think I'll
you're I think you're all right.
He's got one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But when we go to festivals and different things, they'll say, well, who did you study with on piano? And she'll say,
Margaret Carr, 2207 High Street.
They're like,
that's it. That's it.
yeah.
And so that's been really fun.
It's
And the
impressive.
kids-
And she can sing too. I've heard her
Oh,
sing.
she's a
I heard
wonderful
her sing Ave Maria one time. And I was like,
Yeah. She's a
what
wonderful.
is that Susan I've never really heard her sing. What a
Great.
beautiful
I was in the
voice.
state choir.
Oh, I'm sure.
I kept waiting to have one that sang as well or better, and it's not happened.
Yeah.
You're just saying that because you want supper.
And we've had some
were a
amazing.
couple
And
that
we've
were
had some
close.
amazing singers.
I
I'm
will
not going to
say,
have you rank
I could
the
list
top
a
singers of
couple.
all time
No,
because there
no.
are too many. That would be.
But
Nope, we're
And
not
I've
going
been
there.
and I've been so lucky. Just even this is my 12th year's principal. I mean, we've had just the talent of kids of singers. It's amazing.
bragging up Susan, but she's a fantastic organizer. She's programs always look professional. Just everything she touches, she does at that kind of level. You know, the perfectionist is handy to have around.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's struggle. It's like, can you ever just do this at a 95th percentile instead of a 99th? And
No.
nope. But that's great for, the kids benefit from that. Everybody benefits from that. So
Well,
certainly I do.
it's been an absolute pleasure, and I've just been so honored to be your principal, to be a part of this team for at least for 12 years, and I think we've accomplished a lot, and you
I
guys
think that
have.
goes
It's been
both
a
ways,
good
too.
good run.
I always tell the kids, Matt, and this is not just because I'm sitting here. They're so lucky to have you and Michelle, both local people that are really committed to this. And the way you try to get everybody to graduate, just give them every chance possible. And I'll lecture the kids. I'm like, you realize how hard Mr. Jones works to try to get you people to graduate? Do your part, my friends.
Yeah. It's a team effort.
It's
no
all
doubt.
right
Yeah.
there for
Yeah.
you. All you have to do
Right.
is your little part. And there's no excuse around here if you don't, because you're getting all the help you could possibly need.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you.
So
We have I'm surrounded by great people like you. That's what it is, and we wish you a joyful retirement and well deserved. And we're gonna miss you.
Well, thank you.
You're always
We'll
welcome.
miss it. We'll miss
welcome
it.
back to
We'll miss
stop
the
in and
kids
see us.
especially.
we'll be seeing all the programs.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure you will.
We have
We
the
got our
nameplates
reserved
in-
seats.
That's right.
Yeah, you got the nameplates now. You
Right.
know where
We're
you can
good.
sit.
Yeah. And kids know where to find us.
Still planning on teaching the private lessons.
Oh
too.
yeah, and I think
that our
we
new
would all
teachers will
appreciate
benefit
that.
from that.
Sure.
They're probably both higher powered singers than I ever was. So I will sort of say, is it okay if I still do this? But my guess is they'll say, sure, why not? It'll help the program. So optimistic about the future with the people that are coming in. It's going to be a lot for them. And Susan and I are working on, I think you mentioned the same thing. You had a secretary change lately, and here's a 50-foot binder of
Sure,
what the
here it
person
is.
before
Just
did.
slap it and drop it
Here's
on the
ours.
table. Here it is.
And
Here's
by
your
all
guide.
means,
If you want to
don't-
use it, edit, delete,
Right,
whatever.
In this
Do what you
case,
want.
though, in our
Change, copy,
case, it's
paste.
like, I'm not saying do all this.
Yeah,
I'm just saying this is what we did,
right.
and you can decide which to hold on
Yeah,
to. and
I'm
how to
sure
bring
they'll
your own-
they'll
your own
appreciate
thing
that.
to it. And then there's a few things I'm going to say, but you really ought to do
Yeah.
these 3 or 4 traditions as part of our school. So
All right. Hey, thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
great.
thank you.
All right.